So Jack, before we get into talking about your stores, let's talk a little bit. I mentioned a little bit about your background, but why don't you tell us your journey from Glasgow to Phoenix, Arizona?
Yeah. I'm from Glasgow, a Glasgow Rangers supporter. I've got a fellow Rangers supporter next to me here. I grew up in Glasgow, and I was actually filling up shelves when I was at university, the University of Strathclyde. Moved down to London to work for a company called Fine Fair, which was a part of ABF, actually linked with Loblaws at the time. And I then went to work for Tesco for a number of years. And then I went to work for Safeway PLC, which was based in the United Kingdom, totally separate from the Safeway in California. And then we merged that company in 2005, and I got the opportunity to come to run Walmart's grocery business in 2007, which was quite an interesting cultural move from London to Arkansas. It was had quite a lot of fun with that. They didn't understand what I was saying, and I didn't understand what they were saying, so it worked perfectly. And that was a great experience, a wonderful company, and I learned a lot there and got the opportunity to move to 99 cents only for a number of years. I was 9 years at Walmart, got that opportunity, got involved for a number of years there at 99 cents, and then came over to this opportunity with Sprouts. Sprouts is an amazing company. It's a company I kind of admired from afar as a retail guy. Nobody will pay me to do anything else but retailing things. So I kind of was always admiring what Sprouts was from afar. When you're at Walmart, you go around all the states and look at what the grocery competition is. And it was one of the very unique competitors, low profile, heavily focused on fresh produce, heavily focused on differentiated You walk around and you go, what is this? What is that? Totally different types of products. And that kind of inspired me. I was always kind of intrigued with it, even from the early days. Yeah. Sprouts was 2014, it became a public company. I got involved in 2019, but I always kind of watched it closely. Mm-hmm. So when this opportunity came around, I was delighted to get the chance to do something with this thing.
Yeah, well, I can definitely attest to that as a customer, because I always find a lot of products in there that I'm like, oh, what's this? Interesting.
Well, as long as you buy them, that's good.
Yeah, I am. Well, let's shift to the numbers. 415 stores right now?
Yeah, I think we might be 416 now. We opened one in York, Pennsylvania the other day. Oh, it's on the wall, is it?
Yeah, good. we got some fresh images. Yeah,
there you go.
23 states. You have 35 new stores this fiscal year, 110 around in the pipeline. But you've mentioned on earnings calls that you see potential for a lot more, 300 plus stores. So where do you see that growth potential? What are the factors driving it?
The focus behind our business is to be very narrow in our focus of customers. The US food industry is worth about $1.4 trillion. The grocery business is worth about $1.4 trillion. We've said we're just going to go after $200 billion, which does mean we're ignoring $1.2 trillion. We're going after what we call health enthusiasts. And we've segmented the market to say those are the type of customers that will respond to our offer, who are interested in health, interested in the attributes of the products that are in front of them. They'll pick up the label. The very discerning customers who are very interested in what's in the food that they're eating. And that's something that we're playing on pretty assertively. And that's affected how we think about our merchandising, our marketing, our supply chain. You want short supply chains to get fresh foods right. But the real focus of the opportunity, which you're asking about, is we think there's about 1,100 stores across locations around the United States. I call them, we put little blobs on maps of the United States and go, we could have a store there, we could have a store there. And then if it's within 250 miles of our distribution network, that's even better, because then you don't have to. So places like Chicago or Boston, we'll get there eventually, and there's plenty of customers like us, but we're not there, not ready to go there yet until we get the distribution capacity that we need. So about 1,100 opportunities for us. We've got a store format that's a little bit smaller than it used to be, which de-risks the business a little bit. You can make money at lower revenue numbers. So we're pretty comfortable with that. We're being focused and specialist in our business, and that's kind of what the opportunity.
Well, that's what I want to talk about next. So over the last few years in driving efficiency, you've gotten to a smaller footprint, right?
Yeah.
Smaller. So what's the average square footage now?
The ones we're building at the moment are 23,000 square feet.
Okay.
And we've got quite a variety because of the background of the company, but the ones we were building were 32,000 square feet, and they were beautiful, and they were very expensive deli operations, very expensive meat displays, and really nice, but very, very expensive. So we took a lot of cost out as well as making them smaller. And the big thing about making them smaller was, how do we make it in such a way that we don't compromise the assortment. We had to compromise the assortment a little bit in our vitamins and supplements business, but the rest of the store we retained the assortment. And the way we did that was we cut back a lot of the non-customer facing space. There was a lot of space behind the scenes. We had cafes. I remember going into a cafe when I first joined the company and having a lovely conversation with someone who'd been there for about 4 hours and maybe bought one sandwich and a cup of coffee. So it didn't work for us having all that space. So cutting back on those kind of inefficiencies in space, merging some of the backroom stuff together, that was a big factor in keeping this 23,000 square foot store making sense of a reduction from 32. So the customer gets what the same as we can build it cheaper, we can operate it cheaper, and that's been the basis upon which we're building what we call our V6 stores at the moment, and all of them. I think that's one there. I don't know where that one is, but where's that one? Store 9. That was the first one we did. I stopped the store program for 1.5 years while we said we're going to have to get to a new program, and that was the first iteration of it there, what that is there.
Interesting. And I read you have innovation centers inside
Yes.
each store. So can you explain?
Yeah. Big part of our customer base being narrow in their focus is how do you make sure that we're bringing customers some interesting things. It can be, I don't want to be restrictive in how people are thinking about the space. So one of the things that's great about the United States is the amount of entrepreneurial food people that exist around the country. It's amazing, these kids operating in garages, really conscious about trying to make the world a better place, make food a little bit better, make the ingredients a little bit better, make the products a little bit better. And we want to be the destination for those type of entrepreneurs. So the people when I was dealing at Walmart, I was dealing with P&G and General Mills and Kellogg's and Kraft. They don't talk to me anymore because we don't sell any of that stuff. The only people that talk to me are these like really interesting entrepreneurial kind of, I was talking to Jay Shetty this morning about some drink he's just launched with us that apparently is doing very well. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and that innovation centre allows us to test products, bring products in. There's about 20 to 30 products every 4 to 6 weeks, and it rotates so that you're constantly seeing, and the customer can come in and see different products. I see this, I'm trying to see what comes up here on the screens, but there's no innovation centre there. The innovation centre then becomes the destination for people in this treasure hunt within an environment where it's how do you find new and different things. It's amazing watching customers picking these things up and reading them and looking at it. And we've put what we call a foraging team. I've got this vision of a forager, and if you know what, in the forest of Slovenia, you get these pigs that look for truffles, and they're called foragers, and they go nosing about in the leaves looking for truffles. And it's a fascinating thing to watch. That's the premise upon which our foraging team has been put together. We've got an ELT leader who's at Kim Coffin, who does an amazing job for us in terms of driving differentiation, driving new products. And that's what the Innovation Centre, we've created space in the store that allows to do it. A lot of hard challenges in grocery is you got merchandising plans, and it's very hard to change them once you got them. So creating extra space that allows us to test things faster than anyone else in the marketplace is a big factor, I think, of why we're doing a little bit okay at the moment.
Interesting. So I want to go back to the things that you, I guess, took out of the store. Some of the design features that you thought were too costly. So what was it? It was the deli counter and... Yeah,
we had this beautiful thing above the deli counter. I don't know what you call it, really. But it was very ornate and lots of lovely words on it, beautifully done. But it cost $150,000. And I'm not sure the customer even noticed. I noticed. And you look at it and you go, how are you adding value? Especially when you call yourselves a farmer's market. Yeah. We don't want to be turning ourselves into, and exactly the same happened in the meat counter, where we created really nice space to sell the seafood counter and all the interesting meats that we sell. But it was just ornate and expensive. So those were the two big chunks of reduction in space. The other thing we did is we reduced the number. We had 2 doors in our store, so we reduced the door down to 1 door in the store. We changed a lot of the footages around the back of the store to make it easier to operate. So 2 or 3 big things took a lot of money out of it. And just building smaller stores makes them cheaper. Forget what you put in them.
Of course, yeah.
But just making them smaller, if you get 23,000 against 32,000, your rent's lower, your operating costs are easier to operate. And that's kind of how the whole thing's been working.
So with all this growth and you see all this potential, I know one of your competitors has now announced that they're going into urban markets with like even a smaller store format, like 7,000, 10,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Would you see Sprouts looking to go in that direction as well, or?
Well, we've got 1,100 opportunities without doing that, to be honest with you. Is it a terrible idea? No, it's not a terrible idea. But as I think about what our growth potential is, I'm a big believer in you shouldn't try and do too many things all at once. When you try and do too much, you usually don't do anything. Or you don't do as much as you'd like to do. So when I look at the smaller store footprint, I'm not sure we can replicate what the magic of Sprouts is in terms of a very broad produce assortment, a very interesting and involved and well-trained vitamin and supplement department, a bulk department which gives people, I mean, we're the largest retailer of bulk by far in the United States. And what that does is it allows in a tough economy people to get portion control. Very concerned, conscious consumers are concerned about packaging and how that all plays out. So we've got bulk, produce, vitamins, and I don't think a Sprouts is a Sprouts if you don't do that. If somebody can show me how I can do all of that in 7,000 to 10,000 square feet, we've got a store underneath our office, which is, I think, 500 square feet, but it's certainly not a Sprouts, but it's quite nice to show a few products off, and we've got enough to do as it is, so no, we're not going to do that.
Okay. Well, let's great answer. So let's talk about Sprouts, and I guess technology is, the big conversation. Just this morning we had someone talking about where AI is going. Talking about competition, some of your competitors are doing, you can check out with your palms and smart carts and all these different things. But that I feel like goes counter to the experience when you go into a Sprouts, right? It's like more organic and natural. How do you balance like investing or piloting and testing some of these new technologies and still having that human touch within the store?
I'm not super excited about technology within a food store. I think what we've done with self-checkouts, I think, is illogical. We haven't gone all the way. We've done a little bit of self-checkout, so we've done some investment in that to make it a little bit easier for people to navigate their way through the store. But this idea, I think a food store should be about what it sells, not how it sells it. I don't think there's a huge advantage. We've got small stores anyway. They're low-profile stores. You can get in and out pretty quickly. Now, the fact that I could put my hand against a wall and the whole thing gets paid for on a credit card, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm not too worried about that one. Maybe I should be, but I'm not. The things we are very concerned about from a technology point of view is digital and understanding this narrow customer base that we have. How do we truly understand the dynamics of what they're interested in? And when you're operating in this specialist diet space, whether it be keto or paleo or vegan or vegetarian or plant-based or dairy-free, that whole gambit of things, we need to get better at understanding it. And that's a big initiative we've got going at the moment in our Nashville market, in our Tucson market, where we want customers to share. We're incenting them to give us scan their data so that we can understand them better. And then that will shape our marketing, that will shape our merchandising, that will shape how we organize our stores going forward and try and get ahead of trends. The one thing digital does, it allows you to get ahead of trends rather than right behind trends. And if we're smart enough and we can align the data from our customer and align the information coming from the digital networks that kind of all around, I think we can get better at what we're doing. So that technology is really important to us, but the actual technology inside a store, I'm not that focused on.
Are you a fan of the phrase phygital?
I don't know what that means.
No. It was from an earlier session today, and when it was said, I saw people.
Explain it to me. What's phygital?
Merging of physical and digital.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't know whether I want to do that or not.
Yeah. All right. So you're not into phygital. All right. We got that one down. But are there any, just staying on the topic of technology, are there any emerging technologies or things that you look into the future that actually do excite you? Like, do you think when you look at AI, or is it mostly?
Well, no, I think AI plays a key role in understanding that whole gambit of data that you get. There's so much data in a food store like ours and the customer base that we have. There's so much data. How can you intelligently interrogate that data without people having to do it? I'm always intrigued by the kind of loyalty programs that exist in grocery. I was involved in the very early days of Tesco doing this in the late 80s. And the problem was the number of people that had to come and interrogate and do something with the data. You've got data coming out your ears, but what do you do with it? Yeah. It required a lot of people. The thing that AI will do, and is already doing is significantly improve that kind of context of how you can understand the data. It will help our replenishment. It'll help our supply chain. It'll help us how we think about marketing. So a lot of our partners are using that with us, and we've got some. I think the most important thing for us is understanding our customer, but it's got some applications. So I'm not dismissive at all. If digital means I should do all that, then I'm doing it.
Well, great. I want to shift to another topic, which I know is important and topical for this audience, is sustainability. And I know that that's a core value for Sprouts. Are there any specific things that you guys are doing within your stores that prioritizes sustainability?
I always start with let's do good by doing good. It kind of makes sense to me if we build a distribution center to reduce the miles going from the distribution center to the stores, which we did. We built a new distribution center in Southern California, in Colorado, and in Florida. We probably took about 1.5 million miles off the road getting to the same stores. That's a really good sustainability initiative. Yeah. It works for the company and it costs us less money. It works for the environment and our customers, as I said earlier, are conscious consumers. Mm-hmm. They're very focused on let's not wasting money. Our new distribution center in California, we've got a pretty unique solar system operating there in Fullerton, California, which is something we've invested in and will continue to invest more with our partners on it. Again, that might reduce the price of energy for us so we can operate the warehouse, which we have to keep cool there's a lot of cost in operating our warehouses. How do we keep it cool as efficiently and effectively as we can? Those kind of initiatives I really am very excited about, that when we can put investment into our buildings, investment into our trucks, and how do we move that so that we can operate our business more effectively and more efficiently. So that side of it's one. The other side of it that's important for our business is local produce. So we sell 65% of every basket of the baskets going through a Sprouts store has got fresh produce in it. That fresh produce we want to source as local as we possibly can. We're in 23 states. I want to source local products at local time of year. So we've got a team of people in each of our warehouses we've got 8 warehouses across the country. Those people's jobs is to find when things are in season, be at the right. So shortening the timeline makes the product better for the customer, makes it fresher, makes it cheaper, and it travels less miles to get to the customer. The other thing in our produce business that I think is really important is trying to work with growers so that we take the full complement. Rather than a pepper that's a little bit misshapen but as fresh as you can like, the US food industry will reject that. Yeah. And it's a real kind of moral problem I've got with that. There's nothing wrong with it. You're cutting it up to put in a salad anyway. And the reality is, we can and we do play a role in trying to do long-term commitments to growers so that they'll give us the full complement from that field. And to be honest with you, the farmer makes more money, we get a better margin, and the customer gets a better price, and it's better for the environment. Yeah. I like kind of things that work for everybody, because that's the real opportunity, I think. So those are a few things we're working on. I'm excited about things that are linked directly to our business around these issues.
Great. So, as you know, the audience here are executives responsible for leading store development, design, construction. So of course, in their roles, they have to align with the vision of the C-suite and obviously having good, proper conversations, open lines of communication. In speaking with your team, they mentioned that you sometimes get a little frustrated with how long it gets to open stores. Yeah, they shared that with me.
Really?
Not frustrated. Maybe that's not the right word.
Maybe.
But, yeah, maybe. But in terms of your view, in terms of looking at the growth, what do you see from the C-suite frustrations in terms of getting new stores?
Well, we're committed to the marketplace at a point in time to get to 10% of our new store program on the ground. We've struggled a little bit to get that. We're running about 8% at the moment. Why is that? Well, we had a pandemic which made it difficult for all of you guys and all of us to execute the way we want to do it, whether it was permits, whether it was getting the materials through the business, getting the executing in the stores. It was a tough time, and I appreciate all of your support. The ones that I know all of you have worked, those that are working with us, I do appreciate your support on that. We've done really well to launch the number of stores that we've done. We're going to get 35 this year. We had 30 last year, and we'll be north of that 35 next year. not quite 10%, but it's getting close. What are the challenges in the middle of that? I don't think interest rates are helping developers move as fast as we'd like them to move, because we've got plenty of sites. It's how do we turn those sites into reality? And that's kind of, all of you could maybe help tell me how to do it rather than me talk about this, because I don't quite understand why we can't move a bit faster. I've got 110 things signed off. Why can't I just open them tomorrow? You guys probably understand that better than me, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Challenges that we've had, certainly working with local authorities to get the permitting. And when you're operating, as we do in the Smile of America, from California all the way to Florida, there's all points in between. I have loads of meetings with mayors and governors and stuff, trying to say, how can you help us expedite? Because we bring a lot of jobs to these places. How can we expedite and move faster? That has got better since the end of the pandemic. It was a real challenge during the pandemic, to be honest with you. As that was, I don't know, some of you probably understand that better than me. Getting the air conditioning equipment, getting refrigeration equipment was a real problem. I think it's getting better, but I'd like it to get faster. I'd like us to figure out how we can navigate our way through that quicker. And those are the kind of conversations that I have when I'm not getting frustrated at all.
Yeah, well, I didn't mean, maybe frustration wasn't the right word, but those are the conversations that will take place here,
I'm
in
sure.
terms of learning from each other on that. But I'll also share something that I shared, that was shared from your team and from people that have worked at a number of different retailers, said that the culture at Sprouts is way better than any other place that they've worked. And obviously, you're at the helm as a leader there, so kudos to you for leading that culture. But from your experience, as a leader, being in 99 Cents Only and all these previous other companies, every leader grows. What do you think is the most important thing that has been a characteristic within Sprouts and your leadership style?
One of the things, I had a great opportunity 3 or 4 weeks ago to spend time with a guy called Stan Boney, who him and his son really started Sprouts. His father was the kind of inspiration for him and his son to do it. And I spent some time with him in San Diego as part of our conference. And when you hear him talking about his father, who's from San Diego, driving to the Los Angeles fruit market in I can't remember what year it was, 60 or something, to go and buy a load of peaches and drive them back down to San Diego to sell them. He showed me the very first dollar that he got for that. So this company has got an origins of a little bit healthier, a little bit more responsible about how it does things. And I don't mean that dismissively of other companies, but just a little bit ahead. They were doing a farmer's market before farmer's market was even a phrase. So we've got to respect the heritage of what got us to where we got to. Stan and his son, his son sadly passed, but they opened a store in Chandler, Arizona in 2002, and that was the first real Sprouts store. And that was a build-up from where they'd been about creating a context around fresh and bulk and vitamins and health and that whole context. And it's lovely to hear people talking about how we got. And we're lucky, this team here and myself, we're lucky to have the opportunity to have the responsibility of just a little bit, a few months, a few years, however long it might be, of being responsible for this. So what I like to talk to the team about is, let's retain the DNA of what we had. Let's understand what it was that got us to where we got to. So this thing's now $7 billion from that $1.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty interesting kind of evolution. Where can we go from here? The future can be much, much bigger than the past. But remember, in the past is a big part, and that's a big part of the culture. We did a lot of work on values and trying to capture what were the values of Sprouts. And we did an interview, a survey with 5,000 people and said, tell us what it's like to work for Sprouts. And that led us to really capture some values. That we've got 3 values, and I'd be very disappointed if any of our 32,000 people couldn't repeat the values. The value of care for each other, care for your customers, care for your team members, care for the community, care for the planet around you. That's the value of care that permeates through a lot of the work that we're doing. We have a value of loving being different. Our stores are different. They're low profile. They've got a different constituent range and assortment inside the store. And we've got very different people. When you run our vitamin department, you need to be really smart and engage with customers. And our people that do that are so inspirational when you get there. So this whole, and encouraging people to feel comfortable with their differences. When you come to work, this applies to any of us. If you're feeling comfortable in yourself, you'll do a better job. And this whole idea of making people feel comfortable being who they are. And I always laugh about my vitamin team, which I love. They've got purple hair and tattoos and nose rings and all kind of things. And it's kind of inspirational to see how they care about the people around them.
Yeah.
And that links to being different. And the third value is own it. You have to deliver. Whether you're the CEO of the company or you're collecting carts in the parking lot, do your job and do it right and deliver. So if you put those three things together, that's what the 5,000 people that were in Sprouts for years told me was the essence of how it got to where it got to. So we captured that, and we're doing a lot of work around that and building our purpose. We want just to help people live a little bit better and eat a little bit better.
And do you find that, to balance that with the growth that you guys are having, to kind of keep that culture?
It's a great question, and it's a real challenge as we build so many stores, especially in places. In Arizona, people know who we are. When in San Diego, people know who we are. Most of California, they know where we are. When we open a store in Aberdeen, New Jersey, which we did quite recently, or York, Pennsylvania, those kind of, getting people who are what we call Sprouties. We want Sprouties that that can kind of understand who we are. That's a challenge, and it's about recruitment and training and development and giving people some time. And we're having to work at that. If we build all these stores, if I build 40 stores next year, that's 40 store managers, 40 deli managers, 40 vitamin managers, 40 produce managers. It soon adds up. Yeah. And they've got to be good.
Well, I'm conscious of time because I want to leave for a few minutes for the audience to ask questions. I'm sure you guys have some good ones. But I got a few additional questions for you. When you look to the future, what are you most excited about? And then on the flip side of that, what do you think for the industry in general, just retail, that you think any challenges, anything that I guess worries you or keeps you up at night? So we'll start with the positive one first.
Okay. I'm trying to think of what worries me. I try to sleep well. So
it's important.
It's important. So we need to do that. I think there's an excitement about what we're trying to do. We're a small little company in a very big landscape. We're 7 billion and 1.4 trillion. So we're kind of tiny. And I think we've got a role to play in trying to make the world a little bit better. I don't want to be preachy about it. Just a little bit better and sell things that are just a little bit better for you. And I'm excited about that kind of principle. Yeah. I'm excited about having the opportunity to kind of guide and lead and be part of a team. We've got an amazing team of people that are running our business. I'm very confident that will sustain this company for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And I always think about the important thing for me is not what's going to happen right in front of our nose, but what's going to happen in the future, and how do we take this thing to as far as we can take it. And that, I'm excited about that, and that's what fires me up. I'm kind of excited about that part of it. Where's this thing going, as opposed to what it'll do in the next year or two because we have to go and talk to investors and do all that stuff, and that's great. But I'm much more excited about what we're doing in the future and where it can take us. What worries me? I think this pace of for our company, it's the pace of growth. Yeah. And how do we do that? The great thing, and my mother told me this when I got into the food industry, people have to eat. So I don't think the grocery stores ain't disappearing, whatever happens. They might get it in different ways. They might be smaller, bigger, they might be online, they might be not online. But there's a sustainability about our company, about our business model. And I think people that want to eat healthy, I think there's going to be a few more of them in the future going forward. And maybe we've just got to watch whether that trend gets too big and we're not big enough to compete in it. But that would be the only thing if I'm stretching to find things that are worrying me.
And if you look out 10 plus years from now, do you think that the store is going to change a lot drastically?
I think there'll be more fusion of this omni-channel customer between online, and we're finding that our online business has grown pretty substantially. Now you'd say, well, why is that growing so substantially when you're a farmer's market and it's experiential? Yeah. We've gone from 2% to 14% of our sales being online. But the great thing for our business is the mix online. There's as much produce mix in our online basket as there is on our bricks and mortar basket. I don't know any other grocer that does that. That's an element of people having trust in what our brand and our offer is. So what do I think a store will look like? I think there'll be more fusion of how you get the deliveries and the pickup and the final 5 miles and the final 5. That I think the stores will evolve to be better at picking in store is complex and expensive. I think that'll start to evolve and change. And
sounds like a phygital store to me.
Yeah, maybe.
No, that's...
Go Fidgetal.
Well, let's just open up to some questions. I'm sure we have them. We have a microphone out in the back there. Don't be shy.
That table's not allowed to ask questions.
We have one here, I guess. Yeah, if you just wait for the microphone, that way we can get it on the recording. Thank you.
You brought up about leadership, like the leadership of a team around store design and that kind of thing. And I'm curious if you could talk about how you listen to your team and how you incorporate the expertise of what they bring and all of that. Like I think we're used to the CEO or the president is going to tell us what we do and then we just go execute. And I'm curious, there's got to be a place for an exchange of that where you've got experts coming to the table and they're informing, your position. And I'm curious if you could chat a bit about that.
No, I think it's a good question, and I think CEOs have always got to be careful not to be too dictatorial about it. I was very conscious, and it'll probably evolve for me in the Sprouts environment. I was very conscious that I was inheriting something that needed to be changed. So when you have to change something, I think you have to be a little bit, this is what we're going to do. And it's not because people are not capable or not got good ideas. It's just, if you're trying to move a ship, you got to try and get everybody in the one place. And that's a bit about leadership. It's a really good question you're asking. How do you make sure you get the expertise feeding up the way? And I would far rather be a bottoms-up business than a top-down business. I think it depends on the cadence of what's happening in the company or what's happening in the business. So I would suggest I was a bit, we've got to do this when I got in there, and maybe I'll change.
Very good question. You asked what I wanted to ask, and you said it a lot better. Yeah.
No, it was a very good question. It makes me contemplate, so thank you.
When you think about store design, and you mentioned this huge, beautiful thing that you had over the deli, and then you realized it was too expensive and probably nobody was looking at it. How do you evaluate between cost, efficiency, and what materials you want to use? And how do you get the most out of the design of the store to actually, obviously, you have a great interest in showcasing your product, and obviously materials and all the stuff in the design have to help you do that. But how do you evaluate like one material over another that you use in the store design?
Yeah, I think simply put on that question, I think you're trying to create an appearance and a feel as cheap as you can. And if there's ways of doing things cost-wise that can replicate what you want things to look, in our environment, and I think in many environments, I want equipment that's going to show off product as opposed to show off equipment. That was really the context of the deli and the meat thing. You want to see the meat, not the fixture. And how do you create that feeling? And I always think of great retailers. Some of them, the best retailers show off their product. If you go to the Uniqlo store in Tokyo and you see all these T-shirts in blocks of color, I don't know what the fixture is there. I don't know if it's expensive or not expensive, but what I see, my eye sees the color and the blocking. When I look at the back of our wet wall where you see lettuce and all the fresh vegetables, I want color and blocking. I don't want fixtures. So the challenge, I think, always is, how do you get fixtures that complement the product as opposed to fixing it? My inspiration in the fresh food space is things like going walking through the fruit markets of Guatemala and you see the amazing fruit displayed in color, and I don't notice the fixture, but there's a fixture there somewhere. And I think that would be my aspiration. One is, let's try and get the feel that you want as cheap as you can by being clever with materials and being smart with materials. There's some retailers have got to do it a little bit differently. If you're Nordstrom's, you probably have to spend a little bit more on equipment. And I think one of the things I was nervous about us is, we're a grocery retailer, we're a farmer's market, and we just drifted into spending a little bit too much on it, and for the sake of it, as opposed to enhancing the product, if that answers your question.
Just to wrap things up, what are your favorite products when you go into Sprouts? If I'm going there now, there's certain things that you can't get anywhere else that I should be focused on
We did something that I was really impressed with recently. Cherries, when cherries season hits in produce, we all get really excited. Oh, there's cherries, they all come from Washington, Northern California. And it's a huge kind of, the whole industry gets excited and we compete on the fresh cherries. What our team did was do a cherry initiative. So there was about 40 products launched specifically, whether it was healthy cherry lemonade or cherry popcorn or cherry barbecue on the wings. There was right across the store, there was a cherry initiative. And that was back to the foraging team and the private brand team, really trying to create something. That's what matters to the customer, make it bigger. Those products are crazy. And the cherry popcorn, I'm not sure it's one of our healthiest products, but it's...
Cherry popcorn.
It was really good. And that would probably be one I was kind of inspired by because it's so different.
Yeah.
The ones that work for me, we've got these Peruvian chips, which is Peruvian sweet potato chips, which no one else is selling, and they are fantastic. So that would be my two to get started.
Cherry popcorn, Peruvian chips.
Yeah. No, I should pick healthier.
And so when I prepare for these interviews, of course, I go online and try to find some information. And now, of course, I go to AI, and I'm like, tell me some interesting personal things about Jack Sinclair.
No.
And it
Don't
came back
go
and
there.
says, we cannot find anything.
Hey.
So what is, it told me all about your business stuff. I'm like, come on,
That's
you have any
great. I
hobbies,
love
favorite
that.
band. So what does Jack Sinclair do?
I'm Scottish, so golf is mandatory in Scotland.
Okay.
You have to play golf, and there's plenty of golf courses in Arizona. So I was brought up in a golfing family. My father was a Scottish golf international, so I'm a golf guy. I'm very passionate about sports. I mentioned Glasgow Rangers a little bit earlier. I have a very schizophrenic sports kind of attachments. I kind of like Arsenal. They won yesterday. Rangers won yesterday, and I'm really, this room won't like this, I don't think, but I'm a Rams guy, LA Rams guy, because I lived in LA for a while.
Yeah.
And we lost to the Cardinals yesterday, so I'm sure there's a few, no. And I love the LA Dodgers, and they're doing okay, I think.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah,
there you go. Go Dodgers. So yeah, I like sports and play golf and stuff.
Awesome. Well, I guess we're out of time. But listen, this was thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to come here and speak with us. This was a real treat.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.